Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the serious show that gets behind the trillion-dollar business of sports. March Madness is here, 9.2 quadrillion to 1. You know what that is? Those were the odds of a perfect bracket. That was before UMBC. Now, I don't really know that anybody in the tournament ever had a perfect bracket, but certainly not now. But the NCAA tournament is so much more, and we'll cover some of that. Also heading to the NFL draft, NFL free agency, Kirk Cousins. He may not have won a Super Bowl in Washington, but he certainly probably redefines how contracts are done in the future for the NFL and maybe beyond. Tennis, we have Tommy Haas, who was a nationally and world-ranked tennis player of Austrian descent, playing for Germany in America, now running the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, Indian Wells Tennis Facility. The timing for the two big American tournaments, the Miami one and the Palm Springs Area one, before the U.S. Open 4 months from now, and on and on. If you want to see all of the topics, tech, power of sports, and the 15 to watch, CSN Washington, CSN Mid-Atlantic, and obviously all of the other places, Audio Boom, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes feed, and all over the place. Let's talk about a few of the issues before we get to Tommy Haas. We got to start with March Madness and basketball generally. In fact, as we know, if you're a Virginia fan or a North Carolina fan, or for that matter, a lot of the teams, Florida out, North Carolina out, others, but even before the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, let's remember there's economic impact of anywhere from $30 to $50 million in the regions, the Boston region, the LA region, and everything in between. When you think about it, UMBC, obviously the hero of this tournament from a business perspective, UMBC President Freeman Hrabowski, thrilled about the attention the school received around the country. And he told the Baltimore Sun that people began to Google us and see the academic achievements from a potential employer like Amazon to other university presidents to elected officials. The Friday game, 5,400 followers on the Twitter account before it started, over 92,000 after, and more on the way. Little Caesars offering a free lunch to all comers on Monday, April 2, because a 16 seed knocked off a 1 seed during March Madness. Apparently, obviously, no such thing as a free lunch. Yeah, there might be for Little Caesars. Look at the brackets. About 17 million brackets. Last year, about 19 million. But that Thursday before the tournament, the bracket orders were clogged. 8.5 million brackets, the top sign-up days in history. Obviously, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Michigan State. You can bet no brackets perfect, but a lot of activation around them and around the kind of default bracket games. You see them all over the place, especially with the NCAA tournament sponsors like Capital One and others. But let's talk about the bigger picture. Next week, we have more than enough time to talk about San Antonio and the financial perspective. But the bigger picture, where Pac-12 and Larry Scott actually took the initiative. Their committee made some recommendations stating that colleges should be made to change the recruiting process, and they championed the adoption of the college baseball rules, where players either turn pro right out of high school or commit to staying in college for at least 3 years. And no matter how sound the recommendations are, they're only implementable with the support of the NBA and the Players Association. But Commissioner Adam Silver supported the need for the change in the wake of the scandal. And one of the biggest current problems is the notion of paying players and the AAU basketball impact on recruiting. The task force recommendations start making recruits and their families aware of the rules early in high school. Dispensing with the AAU system also includes the side benefit of giving the shoe companies that fund the tournaments a lot less sway over basketball and its players. Larry Scott and the Pac-12 making the first move. And by the way, University of Minnesota president, other administrators, their president Eric Kaler, NCAA president Mark Emmert, Stanford AD Bernie Muir, joined NCAA.com's Andy Katz for an interview regarding the ongoing FBA scandal. And to hear the type of thing going on, they want to get this out of the way as quickly as possible, said Muir. Obviously, easier said than done. The panel agreed unanimously it would be pure chaos if players were allowed to sign individual endorsement deals. And with so much support at the top levels of the NCAA and the NBA, it's clear major changes likely coming to college basketball during the offseason. College basketball important, obviously NBA basketball as well, very important at all different levels, philanthropically and other perspectives as well. Take a look at some of the things the NBA is doing as they get ready to take this on, probably after the Final Four, would be my prediction. But in the meantime, in the wake of some of the NBA's biggest stars acknowledging personal struggles with mental health, the NBA and Players Association decided to create an independent mental wellness program. NBA.com said the entities, both of them on the precipice of naming a director of mental health and wellness, a new role jointly funded by the league and the union. Most recently, Toronto Raptors guard DeMar DeRozan and Cleveland Cavaliers forward Kevin Love publicly stated they're dealing with mental health issues while playing this season, prompting the league to take official steps to help. The new program, the result of almost a year of discussions between the two sides, allow players to seek treatment and counseling outside the framework of their individual teams. The mental outreach program extends beyond the NBA, part of the Junior NBA World Championships in Orlando in August. Player health and safety, a key tenet of all pro sports leagues, including mental health, and great to see the NBA and its Players Association take this important step. It's also great to see some other philanthropic perspectives as far as the NBA is concerned. Warriors partner with Think to monitor concussions, and they became the first pro sports team to work with Palo Alto-based Think, producers of a virtual reality headset that uses eye tracking technology. The headset provides real-time objective data on how the subject's brain is functioning, and the Warriors and the company will use that data to determine if any of their players have concussion symptoms. And unlike the NFL, NBA teams do not monitor concussions on a daily basis, but a handful of NBA players have suffered them in recent years. Klay Thompson in the 2015 NBA playoffs, most notably. And in 2011, now 7 years ago, the NBA passed a concussion protocol that required players to pass a series of tests symptom-free before returning to the court, including stationary bike, light jogging, running, jumping, agility drills, team drills with limited contact, and returning to the court without limitations. And Kirk Lacob, the assistant general manager of the team and son of Joe, said, "We've done a lot of really great return-to-play protocols, and I think the NBA has done a terrific job in being overly safe. Kudos to them. Kudos to the NBA." We'll focus on the Major League Baseball issues before their season opens, the NFL as well, and some international issues. But first, let's talk tennis. Tommy Haas turned pro in 1996. He's at 39. He announces his retirement last July. He beats Federer in his final tournament win last June. 15 titles, 14 million prize money. He certainly had an amazing perspective on tennis. He moved to Florida to attend Nick Bollettieri's academy at age 11. And he's a dual citizen, American citizenship in 2010. And he's the ATP Comeback Player of the Year in 2004 and 12. But that's not really the reason we focused on him and his business acumen. He's running the ATP and WTA joint event in Indian Wells in the Valley, the Paribas, at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden. Larry Ellison owns the facility. Millions of dollars of commitments that have come to improve the facility. He has a lot of strong opinions, as you expect from him, on player capabilities, injuries, tennis for the masses, how to get more people involved in it. And what about the schedules that currently exist? Not to mention Davis Cup and obviously running a tournament and his conversion from the court to the boardroom. Tommy Haas.
Sports professor inside the boardroom, Rick Horrow with Tommy Haas, the BNP Paribas Open Tournament Director. An incredible event $400 and some million of economic impact. It gets bigger every single year. The biggest probably tournament in the United States, absent the major in the U.S., although Tommy will be a little diplomatic when we'll talk about the tournament in Miami. But Tommy's certainly above most people because he had an amazing career as far as the tour has been concerned. 15 titles, 13 and a half executive running the event. Tommy, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, first of all, the transition from world-class, successful, winning much more than you're losing, and striking fear in the hearts of an opponent, to the boardroom, where you're measured not necessarily by wins, but by return on investment. Easy? Difficult? What's the transition been like?
First of all, it's been sort of like a great experience. I'm obviously very honored and humbled about the fact that I'm participating and helping out run this incredible event that we have here in Indian Wells. And, coming off the tennis court, being a professional tennis player and sort of only worrying about myself and making sure that I get the best out of it that I need and trying to improve my ranking and trying to win matches. It's a whole different situation now where you have an amazing team here running the event and you're looking at different aspects with different eyes, and it's been a great learning curve for myself, and it continues to do so. And I'm looking forward to many ways of trying to improve this tournament, which is not an easy thing to do.
Well, and you've landed in the right place. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, 20, if my math is right, so you turned pro in 96, so 22, 23 years of worrying about yourself on the court, and now
right.
You've got to run a series of executives and make sure they like you, are empowered by you, and work well with you. Obviously, the management skills transition. What's the one thing you've taken away from your tennis on-court abilities that have helped you off-court?
I don't know. I think a little bit of determination, trying to get things done, being very precise and looking to be, I guess as a tennis player, with the thing that you always try to do is try to perfect things, which is obviously the wrong thing to do because nothing seems to be perfect. And but you, especially in an individual sport, you always try to go out there and try to have that sort of mindset because, and on the other hand, you always try to figure out a way to win. And so, you don't wanna be in the position where if you want to change things and then do things for the tournament that are in the best interest of the fans, the sponsors, and the players, and me being a former player, I just want to make sure that everything of those things are taken care of. And, the people, the team that has been working here for many, many years have done an incredible job. We are obviously very blessed as well to have an owner such as Larry Ellison that has an amazing vision, and I'm here now, part of the team, trying to keep that vision growing more and more, and that's part of my job as well. And it's very exciting to tell you the truth.
And ladies and gentlemen, for this international audience, let me just provide an obvious perspective. The guy retires last July. He beats Roger Federer in his final tournament. He's the comeback player of the year in 04 and 12, and now you ask him a couple questions that could just as easily reverted to I. Here's what he did in the tennis court. He is absolutely part of the team. Well done, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, yeah.
Well, but obviously you also have a heck of a tournament to run, and I know there's a lot more to be done. That's your nature. But tell us how the tournament this year is improved from last year, for example.
Well, to be really honest with you, last year we had such a huge improvement of, really taking Stadium 1 apart and just really making it, a first-class stadium. It was built first and back in the year 2000, and when you have so many people coming in and the stadium is full of 16,300 people, we didn't really have enough concession stands, and the suites weren't really up to date, and, bathrooms were only on the lower floor. So we really were trying to make sure that all the fans sitting in the stadium would get the best of it, and that's where the best matches are going to happen most of the time towards the end of the tournament, and that really showcases our site here. And I was always joking about it even last year and a few years ago that Stadium 2 came around about 5 years ago, and Stadium 1 was getting very jealous over there because Stadium 2 was having 3 restaurants that you can can overlook and watch tennis. One restaurant such as, Nobu as well, where you're going, okay, what's going on here? Stadium 2 has the most attention. But so that was really the big thing that we did last year. This year, it's kind of been a little bit more about the full bloom campaign, bringing in more flowers, more palm trees, more shaded areas for the fans, because it does get quite hot here in the desert during the day, and we just want to make sure that they do get enough shade and see the beauty of it. It's also called here the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, so we really wanted to emphasize on that as a change. And I think so far the feedback from the fans that have been here watching the early matches, the qualifying has been going on, getting some nice feedback.
The whole world of facility development has evolved over the past few years, and one of the terms owners are using these days, and the one thing that they're most worried about, is the term they made up called decouching, which is you want to make sure that people aren't so excited about the television experience that they stay on their butt and they don't come out to the stadium. Puts more pressure on facility operators like you. How do you deal with making sure that the media and television covers the event right, but still provides such a unique experience that people have to come to the stadium as well?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and I think that's a job from all of us to come together and work together and make sure that we understand what is important for what the fans want, for making sure that, hey, come on out here, look at this beautiful Indian Wells Tennis Garden. We have more areas where you can sit and enjoy and have a great meal. The food has been also really something that we've been trying to improve, to make the food also like a world-class place where you can come out and have, like I said, such as a Nobu experience. So you can go to Spargo, maybe even run into Wolfgang Puck, who's coming this weekend, and then you have the idea of making it so fan friendly. The chances for you to come out here and say, you know what, I'm a fan of Roger Federer, I'm a fan of Serena Williams. The chance of you seeing them so up close and personal is very highly, and you can see what time they're practicing on which outside courts, and be there and possibly get even an autograph session. They also have a great area where all the players warm up, and you can be right there in the front row, all seeing that happening with your own eyes. So if you're truly a tennis fan, it's obviously a no-brainer for you to come out. But even if you're not a tennis fan, it's great to come out here and experience those things and see it for yourself. And as we know, when we go on vacation, I think also one of the most important things is how's the food? What am I going to have for lunch or for dinner? And you have that here, and that's really something that we really paid a lot of attention to. And so the overall experience, I can tell you, is something you will get nowhere else.
Man, you listen to you, and we're going for the food. We're not necessarily going for the tennis. But on the tennis side of it, it is interesting, right, Tommy? Because even if you're a tennis fan or not, you have one of the best players in the world, Serena Williams, who's not even seeded. How did that happen? I know how it happened, but explain it to people. Yeah,
right. She obviously took a little break due to the fact that she became a mother. So obviously, congratulations to her and her husband. A very exciting time for her. It's very exciting for us that she decided to come here and play here. I hope that she's feeling great, that she's ready to go. And everybody that is a tennis fan and a Serena fan can't wait to see what she's going to bring to the table. And that's another thing why it's so exciting. You have the best players from the men's side and the women's side here in Indian Wells this week, and we can't wait to get it started.
On the men's side, Rafa Murray injured, obviously, Roger and Djokovic there. At the Australian, there was a lot of chatter about the grueling schedule. Nadal clearly made that comment. What's your take? And I know you have to be political, but there are a lot of injuries on the tour. How do you deal with the busy schedule and yet get everybody to understand that these players are exposure vehicles for tennis, so they got to play as much as they can? How do you do the balance?
Yeah, that is very hard, and it's very individualized for each and every player. I think if you're a top 10 player, if we're talking about Roger, Rafa, Djokovic, Murray, you are basically in charge of making the right schedule, making sure that you are going to be in top shape for obviously Grand Slams, which you want to win, and obviously the Masters Series, such as this one here in Indian Wells, that you want to win, accumulate a lot of points, and possibly also increase your prize money status. But that's what's so tough to decide at times, and how it is. The sport has gotten so physical. It's very tough out there. All the players that are in the draws can play, so everything is getting tougher and tougher. There are no easy matches anymore. At the Grand Slams, you're also playing best of 5, and then in between maybe there's Davis Cup going on that you want to present your country, and so there's a lot at stake, and the team constantly will try to advise the players what's the right thing to do. Then if you go and play a tournament and you might lose early, you might want to play another tournament because everybody knows how important confidence is going into it. Now, very few people are as blessed and as good as a Roger Federer, so if he decides to only play 10, 11, 12 tournaments and pretty much wins every single one, he can have a less of a crazy hectic schedule, and Serena pretty much has done the same thing over the years, so that has also helped prolong their career. But yes, and then talking to me, somebody that only had 9 surgeries and trying to keep coming back, it's like, usually one thing can lead to the next as well. The body is an amazing tool. It compensates. Once you get over this injury, then something else comes up because you've been compensating. That's what Rafa Nadal is kind of going through. Andy Murray has been going through that for a while, but ends up having to have hip surgery. Now Djokovic is in that stage, and these guys, they're top athletes, and it takes a lot out of them.
What's it like with you getting up in the morning after 9 surgeries? Does everything crackle?
So far so good. I wonder at times, how's it going to be in 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I signed up to play a little tennis on the Champions Tour, which I'm very excited about. Gives me a reason to go still out there, try to stay in shape, hit some balls and compete, which is obviously fun. And as a competitor in any sport, I think you can never really let go of that. So, but so far so good. But, when you have hip surgeries, we had hip surgery, ankle surgery, and 4 shoulder surgeries and elbow, blah, blah, blah. I'm just happy that I actually can still walk straight.
Well, I will tell you this, and you don't have to agree, but I am in South Florida, and I saw McEnroe play in Delray last week, and you have absolutely nothing to worry about. So,
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, well, just a couple final questions for you. This is the biggest tournament in America, clearly, and the largest ATP World Tour and WTA combined 2-week event in the world. And so, big deal. What's it like, basically, running this event as opposed to, I know you've talked to some of your colleagues who run smaller events. Is it twice the headache, twice the excitement? What's the deal?
I think a little bit of everything, for sure. It's obviously excitement. You as a Master Series 1000 and a premier event, the best players are going to come to your event, so you don't have the headaches of trying to get players to come. It's again, with the facility that we have and the history that we have, and for the past 4 years on the men's side and women's side, we've been voted the best tournament of the year. It makes things a lot easier at times. And again, I come from a point of view now where I want to still try to improve a lot of things here at the facility, talk to the players. But, a lot of players always are just, I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait to come to Indian Wells. I can't wait to play at the event again. Thank you. So obviously we are in the right, we're going into the right direction, but there's always room for improvement, as you know. Almost
final question, Tommy Haas. If you had a magic wand, what would you do to kind of change the state of American and worldwide tennis governance-wide? This is not a question of how you get more Americans successful in tennis. This is a question of how the sport is governed, and what would you do to TV? What would you do to the ATP and WTA, or are you happy with it the way it is? Well, I don't even know how to begin to answer that question because it gets very, very complicated with all the different governing bodies involved. You wish that everybody could just maybe come together and figure out what's best ultimately for tennis. And when you have maybe a few people that really are only about that and only worry about what is best for the sport of tennis, that's maybe a way to go and look at it and see if you can do something with schedule tournaments, worldwide. But overall, I think as well, if you're really opening up the books, I think if you're a young girl or boy out there in the world and you like the tennis racket at age 5, 6, or 7, and you say to yourself, what, I want to become a professional tennis player one day, you're going to be pretty lucky to be playing that sport because it is a great sport and you're playing around the globe, which is great, and the tournaments just keep getting better and better. What an ambassador for tennis. That was a great answer, by the way. And then finally, so should you be a little offended? Are you excited that in your bio, the third line before your winnings is that your father was a former schoolmate of Arnold Schwarzenegger? What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Because of that, I've gotten to meet Arnold a few times, and if you really listen closely, I think you can sometimes hear the accent. It does come out here on my side as well. Can't get rid of that.
Closely. You sound more like Arnold than Arnold. What do you mean, listen closely?
Yeah, I can do a pretty good intimidation with him too. But no, it's obviously cool. He actually watched me play a long time ago at the tournament in Los Angeles, and seeing him sit there and getting to know him afterwards, and still being friendly with him over the years is obviously great. He's one of my, in some ways, one of my icons. To be honest, if you look at his story, what he has done, what he has created, it's pretty phenomenal.
Well, the tournament, of course, and your story is fantastic. And Tommy Haas, the tournament is in really, really good hands. Have a very successful 2 weeks. Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard. See you in a couple of minutes.
Tommy Haas, stadium stuff. It's obviously a mixture of high-quality tennis and high-quality entertainment. The tennis tournament, real significant peg now, goes from Indian Wells to Miami for their 2 weeks of the Miami Open that will then go to Steve Ross's stadium, Hard Rock Stadium. First time a tennis court tennis facility has been retrofit inside of a football stadium, done to prevent the tournament from moving up the road to Orlando. Everybody looking forward to that. And the last year, obviously, in the Miami current venue, they move a bit north to the border of Miami-Dade and Broward County. Let's talk football. Well, I guess for Redskins fans, we don't have to talk about Kirk Cousins. The Vikings lure him as a free agent, $84 million 3-year deal. And the biggest thing about it, by the way, it marks a huge break from the traditional way executives negotiate contracts with players over the years. Normally, teams routinely pull the plug early on players and contract deemed cost ineffective, which is not the case for Cousins in Minnesota. News of the deal, by the way, sent shockwaves through the league. Many players commenting, now that we need more players to bet on themselves until fully guaranteed contract are the norm and not the exception, tweeted Doug Baldwin of the Seahawks. Critics of the deal say the guaranteeing will diminish the game. Players may not have the same incentive. Personally, I doubt that, but it certainly will change the industry and maybe make the guarantees in football more like the guarantees in baseball. But first, you got to draft some players to see how they get those minimums and then earn their rights long-term to be free agents. And that's only 4 weeks away. The NFL Draft Theater, built on the stadium's field at the AT&T facility. More than 250,000 fans already registered for a chance to win free seated tickets inside the space at AT&T Stadium. And last year, NFL's draft weekend in Philly was considered a massive success and also marked the first draft to be held outdoors. The 250,000 registered fans represent a 50% increase over last year at this point. State fair-like setting expected to be set up to complement the draft itself. The Cowboys are offering a cornucopia of attractions outside the stadium. They hope will keep fans occupied throughout the 3 days. And yeah, while everything's bigger in Texas, the 2018 draft also continues the NFL's ever-growing ambitions to make a sport a year-round appointment event and provide entertainment to everyone in the family. Good for Jerry and good for the Cowboys. Baseball just around the corner. But here's an interesting twist. A 2-day food fest in New York that features food items from all 30 Major League ballparks. The first ever MLB Food Fest held April 21 and 22 near Bryant Park in New York, each club selecting one concession item to represent the franchise. The event will also feature interactive exhibits and art celebrating baseball's ties to popular concession items such as hot dogs and incorporate MLB sponsors Nathan's and Coca-Cola. How can we miss the Astros chicken waffle cone, the Royals brisket nachos, etc., etc.? But tickets priced at $25 for food only. All 30 clubs sample. $40 for food and beer. Development of the Food Fest led by the league's internal marketing and social team. Logistical assistance from New York-based agency MKG. And the Food Fest sold out in just 2 days, already proving so popular. MLB is taking names for waiting lists for future locations. The NFL Draft becomes baseball's Food Fest, creating situations all over the country that get certain things from baseball. By the way, good for Coke, good for Nathan's, key sponsors there as they deal with this around the country. And the MLB committed to other charitable events as well. Billy Hamilton, Nelson Cruz, Robinson Cano, Dee Gordon, among ball players slinging drinks at the 8th annual Celebrity Bartender Night in Scottsdale to benefit Cruz's Broomstick 23 Foundation. They gathered to support Erica Brooks, whose firm issues concerning athletes finds temporary housing for many major leaguers who spent February and March in Arizona. And her father passed away from a rare disease, meaning a lot to her and the family. Cruz is involved. This Broomstick 23 Foundation is a good example of not only creating a foundation, but putting your money where your mouth is. Good for baseball and good for those who are involved in this event. How about International Soccer World Cup? First of all, the international events Olympic related. 2026 bids for the Winter Games. No U.S. cities, but yet bid deadline of March 31. IOC considering both the 2026 and 2030 Olympics simultaneously, similar to what the international body did in the fall for 2024 and 2028 Paris and LA. Salt Lake did note the city could be ready in 2026 if called upon, but 2030 remains the preferred cycle for them to host. Meanwhile, Utah bid leaders don't believe Colorado can produce top-flight Olympic facilities anywhere else close to the cost of what Salt Lake City can provide. Another factor may be the recent relocation of Mitt Romney to the state. He served, remember, as the savior CEO of the 2002 bid games, and it's good for the Olympics to be wanted. All you need is 2 cities for a bid, and now they may consider awarding both simultaneously like they did for summer bids. Shifting to another bid process, the World Cup, bid from the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, faces opposition only from Morocco. They're making a late charge to win the elusive bid. Canada's official support is a last push to coax the FIFA Congress away from Morocco. Good for our athletes, good for our communities, our economy, our reputation, and the like, says the Canadian Minister of Sports. Competitors' bid proposes a more compact tournament, stadiums and venues within driving distance from each other, as opposed to the North American bid requiring flying. The Moroccan bid also being viewed as more favorable for viewership in the European market due to the time zones it encompasses. The European region clearly drives the majority of TV revenue for FIFA, but yet this joint U.S. bid is interesting. Maybe FIFA will award 2 bids at the same time like they did before, like the IOC is doing. And then finally, internationally, by the way, the MLS and Liga MX officially announced the first stage of a strategic partnership between the 2 North American soccer leagues. MLS is talking about the Campeones Cup, the first competition solely between U.S. and Mexico since Superliga ended following the 2010 season. Don Garber and the League MX president are talking about this, and once again, the healing power of sport should prevail, both on the pitch on the Campeones Cup and matches outside of it. So the bottom line of all of this is that sports and existing facilities are driving a lot of these issues. But let's talk about a couple of quick facilities as we wrap up this week. One is one that's being built and one that's being renovated. The first one that's being built, it's kind of hard to believe. The city of Arlington is building the world's largest esports stadium. Globe Life Park, AT&T Stadium, and Mavericks Stadium. Arlington has the local monopoly on stadiums, but the officials last week announced a plan to build the largest esports complex in America. $10 million, 100,000 square foot facility called Esports Stadium Arlington transform the convention center into a space dedicated to housing competitive gaming bouts. Being on the forefront of new ideas and setting trends is in our DNA, and part of who we are is an American dream city, Jeff Williams, the mayor of Arlington, said. Esports Stadium Arlington further cements our city status as a national and international tourist destination. 10-year lease with the esport tenants, 10-year renewal, and the city plans to recoup the money they will spend through lease payments, event revenues, naming rights. It's a guarantee, virtually, that esports continues to move the needle and move the needle in the correct way. And finally, a stadium and arena-related issue in Seattle. Former NFL COO Todd Lewicki expected to join the Oakview Group in Seattle, the top executive to bring NHL and maybe NBA to the Pacific Northwest. Key Arena, currently being renovated by OVG in Seattle. The hope of landing both the NHL and NBA teams. The team likely begins play in 2020 from the NHL perspective, but a decision not made until the Board of Governors meeting in June. Lewicki, remember, served as the CEO of the Seahawks from 03 to 10, doubling their season ticket base and advancing them to the first ever Super Bowl following 05. City sports writers have said he's, quote, the most successful sports executive Seattle's ever known. And if anybody can successfully bring at least one of these pro sports back to Seattle, it's the brothers Lewicki. Todd and his brother and OVG founder Tim, the longtime AEG CEO. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. We had tennis and obviously March Madness. Get your brackets retooled for next year. We'd like to thank Tommy Haas, Dan Martin, and Tanner Simpkins for putting this together in the midst of a tremendous fourth nor'easter gripping the Northeast. We'd like to thank you all for hopefully subscribing on Apple, Audio Boom, Stitcher, Google Play, and the like, and for joining us. And next week, when we finalize March Madness and begin baseball, join us when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.